Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's just my dad. My dad. My dad.
He often works two jobs to take care of my needs, taking it all in stride. Daddy seldom complains, his emotions he'll hide, all his aches and pains stays up in his head about what must be done, taking no time off. Daddy stays on the run. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear, because anytime I need him, I know Daddy's right here. Daddy's right here. Daddy seldom gets credit. We don't see all that he does. What's important to us is always showing Daddy love. His love's sometimes tough to learn why it took a while. Our relationship's special, one of Daddy's child. Facing his responsibilities, making it do what it do. Physically and emotionally available, yeah, Daddy's coming through. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear, because anytime I need him, I know Daddy's right here. You better know it. Daddy's right. What's going on, y'all? This is your man, Spiro Lehman. Welcome to another episode of Daddy's Right Here Live. Nothing easy about fatherhood, checking up from all the no good. Most of the time he gets it right. He'll usually see the light. He'll take his problems to God. Sometimes we'll pray together. The most gracious, most merciful one. With him the storms will weather. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear, because anytime I need him, I know Daddy's right here. Daddy's right here. Daddy's right here. We got a great topic tonight, the psychological self. Yeah. The human being is multifaceted, therefore we often miss a lot of things because we're so superficial in many ways, and we present ourselves to others as we think others want to see us. Right? Therefore, we lose our sense of self. Right? But if we're going to make change within ourselves, if we're going to move forward and progress and mature, we have to have a deeper understanding of ourselves. And we're going to jump into that a little bit tonight. Check this out. He wasn't no Rolling Stone. Daddy was bad to the bone. He never rolled with many. He tends to roll alone with all his... Seeking refuge from the one above. Now we have the best of him, a daddy full of love. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear, because anytime I need him, I know Daddy's right here. Hey, check this out. You can find this song Daddy's right on Spotify, here. iTunes, Apple Music, right Amazon, Deezer, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and a host of other streaming platforms. Yeah, on your favorite streaming platform, you can find this record. Daddy's right here. It's a single. Check it out. He's my daddy. Daddy's right here. Daddy's right here. He's my daddy. He's my daddy. He's my daddy. Daddy's right here. Daddy's right here. And so you know, this was produced and written by yours truly. Absolutely. And if you haven't heard my album, You Want to Be Me, which just dropped earlier this month, make sure you go and check that out too. It's album number 3. So if you've heard none of my music, go to your favorite streaming platform and check it out. Spiro Lehman. And again, welcome to another episode of Daddy's Right Here Live. Last week was a special episode which took place 11 o'clock at night, which was actually the listening party for the release of the album You Want to Be Me. Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Right? Who are you? Who am I? It's a simple yet profound question. Another provocative question is, why do I act the way I do? Why? And I know it has to cross your mind from time to time. And it usually shows up in those moments of despair, in those moments where you're feeling down about yourself, you're being down on yourself, you may feel depressed, you may be agitated or annoyed by a particular situation, and it keeps recurring over and over again, that same behavior over and over again. And not just in this relationship, but in previous relationships.
and with other relationships, relationships in the workplace, relationships, the personal ones, the intimate ones, the boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife ones, even the ones with your children, other family members, society as a whole. You ask yourself that question. You have to ask yourself that question. And if you don't ask yourself that question, you're either extremely selfish or you're so narcissistic that it doesn't even matter. That it doesn't matter. Right? And you have to begin, well, you don't have to, but if you want to stay in the same mindset that you are, you can. You really can. Because you do have choices. God gave us free will. So you can do as you damn well please with yourself. But when it's not just you, it's not just about you. You understand what I'm saying? If you're living alone, you're living, like a hermit, you have no contact with the outside world, which is utterly impossible, right? You have to have some kind of contact with other people. And the expectation then is that, hey, what's going on, Teach? You have to understand that you interact with other people. You can't just talk to people any kind of way because you're going to get the same back. In most cases, the humblest person, the most spiritual person is not going to tolerate it but for so long. And they're going to come at you with it. They're going to confront you on your behavior towards them. They're going to do it. But oftentimes, the real conflict happens inside of you. Because you keep finding yourself by yourself over and over and over again. And sooner or later, you have to stop pointing fingers at other people and start taking ownership. Because once you begin to take ownership, you'll automatically, almost immediately experience some level of change. Almost immediately. It's like inevitable that you're going to experience a change. Right? So there's this article, and I'm always reading. I love reading articles by from Psychology Today. I read a lot because I've been in this field now 30 years. Certified addictions professional. I've worked with males and females with serious and persistent mental illnesses in a therapeutic community model, inpatient, outpatient, intensive, residential. I've been doing that primarily with males and females who are in state correctional institutions, right? And I also have had my own personal bout with substance abuse. I wasn't always this guy you see before you. And when I mean who you see before you is all of those things are part of me that I experienced throughout the years of my life. Those things don't go away. They don't go away. So my thinking had to change. I had to look at the errors of my thinking. I had to look at me. I had to stop looking at other people, stop blaming the world around me, start taking ownership for what was happening in my life. And there are many people, man, who just don't want to do that. They just don't want to do that. And if you're in a relationship with a person who just does not want to do that, move on. It's been my experience. It's been my experience. At some point in time, Kenny Rogers said it best. You got to know when to hold them, when to fold them, and when to walk away. And you find that a lot of people are doing those things with you. They're walking away from you. They're folding. And they're keeping the hand that they have. They're keeping the hand that they have. Because to them, that's the best hand. It's the safest hand. Because change is scary. There's nothing easy about change. Change means that you have to take one part of you and you have to replace it with something else outside of you. Some other information. You have your own hand to look at. You have your own evidence right in front of you. But looking at that hand is the scary part because it's easy just to hold that hand and let others around you play their hands. Let others around you fold. Let others around you walk away. Do you really have a winning hand? How can you have a winning hand if the outcome that you continuously get is not the desired one? You can't be happy. And there are a lot of unhappy people in this world today, man. And you experience it in every facet of life. In the car driving. How many people are double parking in front of a parking space? And what does that do to you? How does that affect your cognitive distortions, your must-itises, your should-itises, I can't stand-itises, all those things. Driving down the highway, people not using signals, people tailgating you, people speeding. And the list goes on, right? Those pet peeves that irritate and annoy the hell out of us. Are they doing it intentionally? Sometimes we react as though they're doing it intentionally. We personalize it. We believe it's toward us specifically. Not even using the race card. But they don't like me. They're jealous of me. They're envious of me. It's something about me, the great I am, that they despise. Therefore, everything is personal. And every time you personalize things, it turns into an ugly situation. And you become resentful. And what I learned a long time ago was resentments are like pissing on yourself. Don't nobody feel it but you. Nobody feels it but you. You're the only one walking around with a wedgie. You're the only one walking around with a scowl on your face. You're the only one walking around with an attitude in the environment. While everybody else's life is just hunky-dory. They're just moving on without you. So this article, that I want to, talk from is titled, What is Self-Knowledge in Psychology? And it's 8 examples and theories on this particular subject matter. And the article was written July 22, 2021 by Christina R. Wilson, PhD. Right? So it goes on to, if you've asked yourself similar questions, you are not alone. When we don't know ourselves or act in ways we don't understand or aren't fond of, it may be a signal that change is in order. But how do we change? And what needs changing? Just think about that. What do I need to do to change this? What am I changing? We're not talking about changing socks, right? We're talking about something that resides within us. We know what resides within us. Human beings are created in a way that the brain protects us. You're faced with certain situations and you think like, well, you blacked out in a situation. What happened was you went into protective mode automatically. So sometimes you act out and don't realize that you've done it. But it happened. Sometimes it just gets suppressed within you. It doesn't go away. It never goes away. We find varied ways of coping with it. And everybody copes with things differently. We all do. I can see somebody get shot right in front of me and just, welcome to the hood. Right? Somebody else see it happen and they be traumatized for the rest of their lives. They go into shock. They become mute. It depends on the environment that you have been accustomed to being in. You think about our veterans who come home from war and they hear a car backfire. They dive into the ground. And you don't understand why, because you don't know who they are. Then you find out they're a veteran. Then you say, oh, they need help. But when you're constantly fighting with your partner, about the same thing over and over and over again, and you see that you're still arguing about it, and you see how elevated you still get in the situation, you're not even realizing in a moment the trauma of that situation. And that situation is merely a trigger in most cases because it's triggering something that you have suppressed, something that you have put a band-aid on. Like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound, it continues to seep. It doesn't heal. It's always there. Or like arthritic pain. Like when you live in damp environments, whenever it's damp, you feel that achiness, or whenever it's cold, if you live in those multi-seasoned environments, when it gets cold, you know it's getting ready to rain, you get that aching, you need things of that nature. So, but within the psyche, it's different. It presents differently. And it's a different kind of pain. Because it's internal, you don't see it. But others see it. Others see your pain. Others see your pain. Me being, I say, a recovering enabler, right? I always notice the pain. I'm a caretaker. So I want to take care of people. I want to take you away from a place that you are and bring you to a better place because I know there's a better place and I know that there's a better place for you. But don't ever believe that you can love anybody's unresolved away. You can't. You can wine them and dine them. You can buy them all the riches in the world, and it will never change their condition because they don't want that change. They don't want your riches. They may accept them. They may happily receive them, but that's not part of the change. Many people have failed relationships because they don't want to see those kind of things that are transpiring between themselves and others, not realizing that that's where the growth comes in. When somebody confronts you about a particular behavior, yes, the first thing we do is we get defensive. I don't know anybody that's going to have somebody confront them about a negative behavior and embrace it, willfully. Hey, yeah, great. Oh, thank you for giving me that. I love that criticism. Thank you. It doesn't happen that way, people. It doesn't happen that way. But at the end of the day, you entered this life by yourself. Whether you had people around you or not, you entered this world alone. And it wasn't until you were shown and taught otherwise that you realized you weren't alone. And I'm telling you now that you're not alone. That the things that you are experiencing within yourself, the difficulties, the fear that you're experiencing, because change is so hard, it's easy to feel like you're alone. But others are in that same position. They're in the same predicament. There's things about me that I need to continue to change. There's things about myself that I constantly look at. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I seeing things from this perspective? Why am I not seeing things from a more positive perspective? Why do I continue to hold on to this particular attitude, belief, this value, this moral code of a sort? Why do I continue to hold on to that? Because I hold on to it doesn't make it right. It's just easier to be there in that place while I'm causing harm to others around me because I don't want to change. And we have to get away from the mindset of, well, that's on them. I am who I am. We have to get away from that mindset if we seek to have a more fruitful, healthier life of relationships. Period. So back to the article. The article quotes Albert Einstein. So it says, Einstein once reflected, quote, how many people are trapped in their everyday habits, part numb, part frightened, part indifferent, end quote. To have a better life, we must keep choosing how we're living. We must continue to choose, to keep choosing, not somebody else for us, right? Ignorance, fear, and indifference do not provide the impetus for gaining self-knowledge or effecting positive change. In the article, in the show description, I refer to the Johari's window, and there's these panes, right? And each time you learn more things about yourself, the smaller the thing that the frame gets about things you don't know. So the more you know, the smaller they become. These other windows become, right? And then we think that people don't know us, but there are things that we present to others around us. And that's the pain. That is the pain. It is. That's where most of our pain lies, in what others know. And I'm not talking about somebody who you live with who has seen things happen in your life and seem to believe that those things are what's causing the behavior. Because only you know that. We can assume that. We can paint a picture for you of these things. But you know that these things happen. You just don't know how you reacted to it, how you really worked through it. You just know it don't hurt right now. But that pain of what others know about you is what presents itself over and over again in every relationship. How many times have you heard somebody say, you don't listen? I'll be talking to you, you don't listen to me. How many times have you heard somebody say it? It's not just this person now saying it. Because the first thing that we tend to do is say, oh, you just like him. You're just like her. Therefore, y'all belong together. Because it's not true about me. But you've heard it before. At what point do you begin to look at it? Right? Back to the article. What is self-knowledge in psychology? Self-knowledge in psychology is, quote, actual, genuine information one possesses about oneself, end quote. And that quote was from Morin and Racy, 2021, page 373. This includes information about our emotional state, personality traits, relationships, behavioral patterns, opinions, beliefs, values, needs, goals, preferences, and social identity. That's a lot, isn't it? And do you really think that any of us sits and does an assessment of ourselves on all of these things in the moment? No. None of us do. None of us do. It's usually just that one aspect of self, right, that we tend to use as the defense mechanism or as the justification and rationalization for whatever's presented to someone else that they're confronting us about, that we address. We'll avoid what exactly it is that they're saying, right? And we'll deflect and come at them with something else. Or in many cases, begin to pull out the laundry list of things that they've done to us that are similar in nature. Yeah. There's nothing easy about change. And you're going to hear me say this throughout the show because there's nothing easy about change. And when you look at the last point on there that it made about social identity, how many of us act in a way that we think society would have us act? Those who are around us in your circle. They expect you to act a certain way. When you stop acting the way that you used to act, what's the first thing that they say? Oh, what's up with you? You getting new? Absolutely. I'm getting new. I'm getting new information to address areas of my life that are self-destructive. Yes, I am getting new. So the next time that you've made a change within your life, a positive change, right? And somebody says that to you, agree with them. Yes, absolutely. I have changed. Yes, I am getting new. I am. And what tends to happen when you get new on someone? You can hold them, fold them, walk away, right? They do one or the other. And a lot of times when they hold it, they continue to gnaw at that part of you that you are seeking to change. They want to bring it back. And a lot of times they're successful. So what does that tell you? When you find yourself for 6 months, 7 months, not acting out on this particular trait, not acting out on this particular behavior, and then it shows up, you'd be like, damn, I thought I got better with that. But how did you allow it to come back out? It didn't go anywhere. So what that tells you is, what that should tell you is that it is a daily exercise. Change is a daily exercise. It is not an event. Change is not an event. There's some work that you have to do to stay the course. When it resurfaces its ugly head, you have the responsibility of finding out why it did in that moment. Because if you know that's a better part of yourself, that would be a good time to say, you know what? I humbly apologize. That's an area of myself that I have continuously worked on, and I apologize for allowing it to come back out upon you. You didn't deserve that. Whether they really did or didn't, it doesn't matter. Within your mind, you should be saying, nobody deserves to be subjected to that behavior from me, because that's not who I am. That's the person that they're used to. That's the favorite person. When you change those people who are around you, right, you start seeing the change within you. When you keep those people around you, those same old people around you who are giving you nothing, who don't feed your spirit positive energy, right, you see the difference. And they want you there. For whatever reason, they want you there. That's a comfort zone for them. Chaos is actually a theory. It's actually a theory. Chaos actually works. But you have to understand chaos theory in order to understand what chaos looks like and how it impacts environments. Just look at the world today. Chaos theory is being imposed upon us on a regular basis. Every time you watch propaganda platforms, the news, right? Entertainment, music, right? You are experiencing chaos theory. It's making things happen that people want to happen. It is. It's making things happen. It's making us hate one another. It's making us look at each other sideways. It's making us distrust one another. Not just by the color of one's skin, but discrimination, your sexual identity, race, religion, lack of religion, and the list goes on. Chaos theory works. When we look at internal chaos, right, we're talking about an entirely different structure. And it doesn't work. But you see some people, they always got issues going on. They always got drama going on. It's always something happening. So there's something happening in the thinking that drives that. And it's by design. It's by design. So now that you know the game, You have to learn how to play the game. So you start weeding people, places, and things out of your life. And you start seeing peace begin to creep in. You begin to feel some level of sanity. Some level of sanity. But then, some people, some places, some things you let creep right back in again for whatever reason, because you get complacent again. You get comfortable again. Why? Something happened. Something is happening in your life to allow that to happen to you all over again. It's just those little cousins to complacency. Anger, resentment, fear, guilt, shame, embarrassment. Yeah, those are the cousins of complacency. And you're right back in the same place all over again. All over again. Let's go back to the article. So this list that it has, I think it was 10 things that on this list of understanding the psychological self. Number one on the list is the physical world. The category of information is limited to physical information, such as height, weight, and eye color. So that's the physical world. That's the first aspect of self that you know. Right? Now, if you don't like your weight, how do you think that affects you? If you don't like your height, how do you think that affects you? Your eye color, right? So if everybody around you has hazel color eyes and yours are black, how do you see yourself amongst those people? What do you begin to see? How do you interpret that? How do you interpret that? If everybody around you has short hair and you have this long, flowing, lustrous hair lays on your shoulders, but everybody around you has short hair, how do you see yourself? The human being wants to be a part of something. It wants to be connected to something. It wants to be a part of. What do you do to become a part of? Why is it you don't keep your own identity? Why do you move away from that? Right? Look at those kind of things. For a long time, you looked at most of these magazines where you had these rail thin models. And that's all was desirable. And people wanted to be rail thin. They start looking at themselves as being obese. Women began to think that that's what men wanted. Well, there were a whole lot of down low BBW fans, creeping. And would be ashamed if they walked down the street with a thick woman. Be ashamed. Because the mindset created is that you have to be rail thin. So the physical information, right? The physical perception of self is the first aspect you want to look at. And we can go into a whole lot of other descriptions, physical descriptions. But you hear enough of that every day in the propaganda to get thrown before you. So we don't need to go into that. This is not necessary. But it's relevant. Number 2, social comparisons. This source of self-knowledge occurs when comparing ourselves with others. Subcategories include upward and downward comparisons, in which we compare ourselves with someone better off or worse off. respectively. Right? So we see the influence that, for instance, musical artists have. Right? If I wore a members only jacket today, right, and walked down the street with it, how many people look at me and say, yo, dude, you need to let that go? Like, don't nobody wear that stuff no more. Why are you wearing that? But let their favorite recording artists, right? Jay-Z, Eminem, one of those cats. Let one of them put on the members only jacket. Members only jackets will be, it'd be a warehouse clearance. Everybody will be buying members only jackets. And you know it's true. It's back in style. Bell bottom pants. I wish they would come back out. I'd be right on them. I don't know about the platform shoes, marshmallow shoes, right? But I'd be back on some bell bottoms, right? There was a time where men were sexy in the sense of their fashion. Like, I like wearing my shirts unbuttoned, right? I like wearing my shirts, out, like to be flowing. I buy the slim fit pants now, not the skinny jeans, slim fit athletic pants now. You only see certain groups of people wearing that. When you see other groups that are portrayed in the videos and on stage, the people I mentioned, who would wear one thing and be applauded, right? You see them wearing all other kind of gear, and then you see all these other people follow behind them to get this gear, to have the pants hanging off your behind, to have they don't fit. You buy skinny jeans and you pull them up halfway. You see the oversized clothing. You see the how fitted caps are worn and so on and so forth. You see all these things, and then society, talking about social comparisons, right, begins to emulate that same thing. Don't care about any kind of reasoning behind it. Simply do it because they see these people they admire doing it. Because they see them doing it. But if you ask them about the artists that they admire, that they attempt to emulate, if you ask them, what does this artist contribute in terms of your desired goals, they can't answer that question. Oh, I just like listening to him, because he be talking real stuff. What's real stuff? It's only in the past 5 years that we begin to see that all of it is an act, that many of these cats out there doing this music thing ain't gangsters. They ain't flipping bags. They ain't selling rocks. They ain't moving snow. They ain't doing none of that stuff. They've never even been part of it. But because the music industry pays money, big money for this, they do it. For a long time, I thought Ice Cube was a straight gangster. And ain't none of y'all out there can tell me that you didn't think different. Thought he was a straight gangster. He ain't never been a gangster. Never. And here we are years later, many years later, decades later, learning otherwise. All these dudes are artists. Music is a form of art. Do you believe that Denzel Washington is a bad cop? Do you believe that King Kong ain't got nothing on him? No, he's Denzel outside of the movie theater to everybody who sees him. But you see Ice Cube, oh yeah, he coming with the crew, got the squad, got the Crip walk, right? You want to do the Crip walk until somebody with a red cap walks up on you and challenges you. Oh no, I'm just playing. But these dudes been doing it for decades. Right? On one half, you have people who admire law enforcement. Listen, my hat comes off to policemen. I would never want to do their job. First of all, they ain't paid enough damn money to do what they do. Second of all, when bullets get to flying, I'm flying the opposite direction. But how many went out and bought those Imperials? Right? How many went out? How many still buying them? And they keep the light on the outside of them Crown Vics. How many of them doing it? Right? You want to be the police. You want that power, that authority. And in the same breath, you want to defund them. Right? Because we're talking about social comparisons now. So to the average Joe who's not in the categories I just talked about, right? What are your social comparisons? Right? Who do you compare yourself to? Think about it. Number 3 on this list, reflected appraisals. This source of knowledge stems from others' evaluations of us. Others' evaluations of us. The term denotes the fact that we see ourselves reflected through the eyes of others. And where does that begin? Think about it. It begins in the home. That's the first place it begins. That's the first place that begins. Reflected appraisals begins in the home at childhood. Whoever your caretaker is or are. Right? That is the first line right there. You do something, you get yelled at, you get put on timeout. Somebody's telling you, stop doing that. That's not right. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do this. Especially when it comes to males, right? Males have gotten so much and continue to get so much bad information. It's not even misinformation anymore. It's just bad damn information. We are so poorly groomed in the home, in society, in relationships. So poorly groomed. And our struggle is constantly how to be a better man. And when we have all this stuff thrown at us from childhood, telling us that here's the dumbest thing. How do you tell a 5-year-old little boy who's acting like a 5-year-old little boy when he falls and hurts himself and he's crying to stop acting like a little girl? And then in the same breath, you need to learn how to be a man. Look at the reinforcement there. If you do this, you're acting like a little girl, so shut up. Because this is what a man does. A man doesn't cry. A man doesn't act like a little girl. A man doesn't show emotions. You suck it up. And at 5, be a man. So you can give me all the toys in the world. But I can't be a boy. I have to be a man. So our boyhood is ultimately stripped from us in our own homes. It's stripped from us. Therefore, what you have created is an emotional hurricane, an emotional tsunami. That's what you've done because you're suppressing the emotions over and over again. Shut up, shut up, shut up. And then we're asked by our significant other, why don't you talk? You never want to talk about things. How do we deal with that? Right? Angrily. Now, here's a person asking us to talk. And when we start talking, it comes out like a flurry of punches. Our tongue, a flurry of punches. Yeah. So we really have to begin to look at what we're teaching children in the home, because the image that we give them of themselves through our appraisal, through our evaluation, through our assessment, through our expectation is disastrous. We're trying to raise many me's. And you need, and because you lack so much knowledge about your inner self, about your psychological self, you don't see what it is that you're doing. You don't see what it is that you're doing. Because now you have actually created a mini me within the person, not without, within. I hear a lot of guys when I'm doing fatherhood classes talk about how, I don't want to be like my father. I want to be like dude, right? He walked away from his responsibilities. He walked out on my mother. He walked out on us. What kind of man walks away from his responsibilities and don't realize you're just like him? Just like him. Even without him living in the home. For one, because you're his seed. 26 chromosomes. 13 from mom, 13 from dad. Genetics. A predisposition for a lot of things. Not just the looks. Do you really think that you can look almost identical to your father and you don't have his traits? You don't have his personality? You don't have his behaviors? Do you really believe that? Oh, well, hopefully this show tonight will give you another perspective. Because then when if the day finally comes that you connect with him and you begin to spend time with him, then you'll actually see, yeah, there goes that apple. Yeah. That's that apple. It didn't fall far away from the tree. You follow me? Be a better version. But you can't be a better version unless you purge yourself of that which you have held on to so negatively, instead of looking at the positive of it. Because there was strength in that. And a lot of times what you have to understand is, right? And typically you don't see it until you're in a similar situation with your own child or children. You realize, maybe he was on to something. Maybe the relationship was so toxic that he just couldn't take it anymore. And you can say, well, that don't mean that you don't see me. Well, you don't know the circumstances that kept me from being able to see you. You only heard one side of the story. But that reflected appraisal, right? Remember, the evaluation by others, the analysis by others, the expectation of others is what guides your thinking toward that other parent. And now you're sitting there with your head in your hands, talking about how, why, and then now when you find out the truth, or you find out the reality of things, where it was just two people who didn't work out and they just couldn't get along, and in any capacity where they can even come to agreement through a court to let this relationship be, to stay out of the way, to let me make my own decision about my father. I'm glad I was one of those sons, after years of being away from my father, who rekindled that relationship and who had a great relationship with him before he was murdered September of 2004. I'm thankful. I had 10 years of my father. 10 years. When I got my life together, that same year, me and my father reconnected, and we attended the Million Man March together. My father was a laborer. What was it 330, 337, 332 Laborers Union in Philadelphia, right? And I went with my father and the union members, as Philadelphia marshals to assist with crowd control in Washington, and it was such a wonderful thing to be standing there locked arm in arm with my father, for crowd control. It was a wonderful thing to just sit across and see my father over there talking to a group of his buddies and just sitting there saying, that's my father. And I was glad that I took the initiative to have that relationship with my father. So when we look at reflected appraisals, make sure you're looking at these kind of things. Make sure you're looking at when you're talking to someone about another, in their presence, how that impacts them and how you associate them, that child, with their parent and the negativity of that parent, and how you impose your beliefs and your feelings and your thoughts about that parent upon the child, and what you say to the child, because that child begins to form within themselves what they don't want to be like, what they do want to be like, who they want to be with, who they don't want to be with, and then telling them that they're no good and so on and so forth. You have to be careful of those things. This is why we have so many unproductive children, so many children who have these attitudes of entitlement, who have these little glimpses of violent tendencies in the house, and these outbursts of behavioral issues because of the internal conflict that they have, and they have no clue. You don't have a clue as an adult. How the hell can they have any kind of clue as a child of how to deal with what they're going through? Number 4 on the list, introspection. This source of self-knowledge is derived through inward observation of thoughts, feelings, motives, and desires. Introspection is interwoven with and integrally connected to self-knowledge. Introspection is interwoven with and integrally connected self-knowledge. All of these things work hand in hand. The way I see myself on the inside, right, is based upon those first 3 things that I just talked about. So now I'm forming a self-concept. Right? So it's an integral part of how I react to the world around me, because I've been conditioned from the outside, from the inside the home, right? And my own psyche, and how my psyche is internalizing all those things. And now I'm here to the part of introspection, because I got to find my place in the world. Just take a realistic look at yourself and just ask yourself some basic questions. Who am I? And I would write it down. Head to paper, who am I? And put those things there. Write them down. Whatever you think about yourself. I'm a good communicator. I'm very talented. I'm skillful. Now, each one of those things you've written out, just write 5 down. Write 5 things about yourself in terms of who am I. And then once you write each of those down, expound on each one. Take your time. Take your time. Maybe spend a week on one, another week on the second one, and look at all those things that you said about yourself and ask yourself, are you saying and doing what is? In other words, is your mouth saying one thing and your actions showing something else? And are you being consistent? Are you just that way at work and not in the home with your partner? Are you just that way with your partner, but you're not that way with other family members? Because it's a matter of being consistent. Because if you're not the same with everyone across the board, then there's an issue there. Because that behavior, that attitude, that belief, that value is going to continue to remain just that way until you see, I don't act this way with this person. Why? What is it about my relationship with this person? What is it about me going to this place? What is it about this thing that triggers me to regress back to that old self? Because it's a matter of consistency. The same way you see me here right now is the same way you'll see me at work. It's the same way you'll see me at Walmart. It's the same way you'll see me at Disney World. Always the damn professional. But I'm fun. I laugh. I enjoy life. I'm grateful for life. Whenever somebody says, hey, how you doing? I say, another day above ground. My best friend, Donald Kolak, that's all he used to ever say. My friend Ralph Green, it's going to be okay, brother. It's going to be okay. And not saying it sympathetically, but saying it empathetically. Like, brother, I know. Yeah. And he may not was able to say, I know how you feel, because he didn't say that, because he couldn't really know how I felt unless he was in that situation. But a challenge, an eternal challenge, an eternal conflict, an eternal struggle is just that, whatever it may be. You understand what I'm saying? We're going to stop on 4, and we're going to come back next Saturday, and we're going to finish up this list, because there's a lot more to cover on these 5 areas here, right? But again, I want to welcome everyone. Hey, Samaki. I want to welcome everyone back to Daddy's Right Here Live. I had to take a sabbatical because I had an album to finish up. The album is done, so I'm back. I have another film that I'm working on. I have a book to finish up. But I'm also working on an LLC. So Daddy's Right Here is a nonprofit that has been on the back burner since moving from Philadelphia to Florida. I've also started a Daddy's Right Here LLC, whereas I'll be facilitating fatherhood classes. I'll be doing conferences, workshops, on fatherhood, and the which will be for professionals, caregivers, community members, right? So, we can all get on the same page in terms of how significant fatherhood is to changing a lot of what's going on in the streets today. Because our politicians need to also understand, because they're not interested in opening up rec centers. They're not interested in providing things for the community so the community can thrive as it once did, and we can become neighborhoods and stop being hoods. So that's another aspect of Daddy's Right Here, the social responsibility in terms of those who are entrusted with the care of its citizens. And then I have another LLC, which will be coming behind that, which just is strictly dealing with my other arts, my penmanship, my drawings, my graphic designs, and things of that nature. But if you haven't listened to any of my music, you can find it on any of your favorite streams, any of them, Amazon, uh, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Apple Music, and a host of others. Uh, Again, I don't profess to be, and I meant this the last time I say it. I don't profess to be an R&B singer, or rapper, or any of those things like that. I'm an artist. So whatever form I express myself, and I'm expressing myself, whether it's your flavor, not your flavor. Listen, God gave us free will. Turn the page, turn to something else. You have that right. But check it out. Check it out. Listen to it. Listen to the lyrics. Listen to the lyrics, because the lyrics is the most important message that I want people to get. The lyrics, not the fact that I mixed it and mastered it, so eloquently. Um, but just listen to the music as a whole. There's a message, and it's not hit a nigga, kill a nigga, knock a nigga out kind of stuff. I ain't doing that. I don't do the ratchet stuff. It's about maturing, right? It's about seeing life through a different lens, a more productive lens. We're at the hour. Um, and again, I thank everybody for tuning in to Daddy's Right Here Live. Make sure you join me next Saturday, 6 p.m. I'll be looking for you. Thank you all for tuning in. Just know that you can get me on Instagram, YouTube, on my Suburban Educational Station. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Facebook. Right now, I'm on all four of those platforms. So it's not just the show, it's just not on Instagram right now. It's on the 3 other platforms. I'm using a whole new platform now where I can reach out and I can connect and build on all those platforms right here.
Moving through the street.
Thank you again for tuning in.
Swagger need.
Peace.
Often works 2 jobs to take care of my need. Taking it all in stride. Daddy seldom complain. His emotion. Daddy stays on the run. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear, because anytime I need him, I know Daddy's right here. Daddy's right here. Daddy seldom gets credit. We don't see all that he does. What's important to us is always showing Daddy love. His love sometimes tough to learn why it took a while. Our relationship special, one of Daddy's child. Facing his responsibilities, making it do what he do. Physically and emotionally available, yeah, Daddy's coming through. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear, because anytime I need him, I know Daddy's right here. Daddy's right here. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Nothing easy about fatherhood, protecting us from all the no good. Most of the time he gets it right. He'll usually see the light. He'll take his problems to God. Sometimes we'll pray together. The most gracious, most merciful one, with him the storms will weather. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear, because anytime I need him, I know Daddy's right here. Daddy's right here. Daddy's right here. Here, 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 here.